Well, I guess you could consider me a risk taker because I've always said yes to adventure. So I've always been trying to do things that I haven't done before, go into the unknown, take the next step. And for me, this is a big step.
Hey, Kitty.
Yo.
Just a reminder, we're climbing ice in Norway.
I want to go to Norway because it's the biggest ice in the world.
I know, it's been a dream for a long time for me, Kim.
It could be that actually everything will just go smoothly, or there could be we could have a moment.
That wasn't pretty.
Climbing is really revealing because when you're in stress, that's when you really get to know yourself.
Yeah.
Even if I summit or top out, it's more of a feeling of, well, I got to have this experience and I'm grateful, and now I'm gonna reflect on it and think about what I've learned from it, what I've gained from it, what I can take home for me and what I can share with others. Just recently, I've recognized the importance of story in my life and how it can be valuable, helpful to the lives of others. And Norway is the source of stories. Norway is the heart of Storyland. Norway is Storyland.
Dalagiri, 26,800 feet. She was the first American woman to reach the top. Makalu, at 27,800 feet, the world's fifth highest peak. She was the first woman ever to summit. Never mind that she was once afraid of heights. Today, Kitty Calhoun is recognized as one of the great American climbers. From Alaska to India, Kyrgyzstan to Kathmandu, she's renowned for attempting some of the most difficult climbs imaginable. It's not an undertaking for the faint of heart or weak of will. A mistake, an avalanche, something goes wrong and you die.
I call her the legend because really she is an historical figure, a historical woman climber. You know, we heard about her early on and we're still hearing about her, and so she's kind of our legend.
Kim Reynolds has been Kitty's ice climbing partner since 1999.
Early on when she was doing a lot of her big peaks, it made women realize that they could go out there and be on the big peaks along with the men, and she was really an inspiration.
Kitty's journey from her native South Carolina to the mountains of the world began with an outward-bound course and a formative lesson in confronting her demons.
The thing that I feared was heights.
Looking good, Kitty. Thank you.
Well, my greatest fear would really be to get to a place and be stuck and not be able to move, to panic. And so I decided, well, I'm just not going to look down. And that worked for me. I didn't look down, and so I was able to move past the hard parts and not let panic paralyze me.
After college, she got in her car and headed west. The odyssey of Kitty Calhoun had begun.
So I brought out an atlas, and I decided, okay, I'll spend January in Colorado, February in Wyoming, March in the Cascades, and April in the Sierras. I lived out of this Subaru. This was a Subaru that I got when I was in college. And so what I had to do was take the rear seats out, and I put a chest in there, and then I put a piece of board that fit level over the chest that would be out of view, and then I could sleep on top of the board. And I lived out of this car for several years, actually. So I took out $3,000 in traveler's checks from the bank to last me a year, and then I figured, okay, well then I can spend $14 a week on food, so that was $2 a day. There was no budget for alcohol. I couldn't drink. I couldn't afford to drink. I couldn't see movies. and I learned to live on $2 a day for food.
It was a time for having fun and honing her skills for the big challenges to come. First, in Alaska.
Okay, well, I went to Denali in 1985 with Colin Grissom, and we climbed the Cassin, which goes right up here, just like that. And this was a really exciting trip for us because up near the summit, we ran out of food.
A sudden storm came up and trapped the two climbers in their tent. Now they were not only out of food, they were running out of time.
We were starving to death. And we didn't have any food for 5 days, so we were getting weak, and we were lethargic. And then the storm started to die down. And this was sort of life and death. Do we have enough strength to make it to food or not? But we had to try. That was probably the hardest moment I've ever had.
They dumped everything they didn't need and struggled over the summit ridge to their food cache. For Kitty, it was an epiphany.
The Cassin, I learned what I could do without, how much I could do without, and that there's a sense of freedom that comes with understanding what I can do without. What I really need is food and water. I need to be warm. I need sleep. Those are the essentials. It starts with that. And it's come down to that at times.
More on the epic climbs later. First, Norway.
Okay, the reason why we're here in the cold, and I am cold, instead of at the beach, is because we're hard women, and I've talked about this before, but you know, it's really the same reason why neither one of us have a full-on garden yet, because we're too young to stay at home.
That's right. That's why I have an automatic watering system on my garden.
Right, and I have no garden at all.
You don't.
Right.
That's because you live in the desert.
They have forged a friendship based on trust and interdependence.
Kitty's got a great sense of humor. She's also very serious and very determined and very motivated and game for everything. So that's what's fun about Kitty. And we really are comparable partners, and we push each other.
Well, she's one of the most dependable people I know, and that's hard to find. And it means a lot to me to have found Kim and be able to depend on her. I mean, we go on a big trip every year, and I can count on her. She's coming.
Whether I like it or not, huh?
Yeah, but we have fun.
Yeah, we do.
It's good.
This year, the trip is Norway, and today is their first climb after a month off. The challenge is the 300-foot Rotnanfossen. They're calling this a warm-up for the big climb to come.
The no-name Fossen.
Nice climbing in your feet. Hinge at your knees, drop your heel, and kick up into the ice. Keep your feet shoulder-width apart. Relax and drop your heels. With your arms, I want to extend my tool, place it where I want it to go, and fire it. Flicking my wrist at the end. Ice, and looking down at my feet, moving them up. Dropping the heels. Place it, fire it.
By now, Kim is 50 feet up the ice. A fall now could be disastrous, so she decides to protect herself.
Once I climb up, I'm going to be placing ice screws as my pieces of protection, and I will be clipping to the ice screws. If I were to fall, the ice screw and the belayer keep me from hitting the ground. It's my safety system.
To belay is to protect. The belayer in this case is Kitty, ever vigilant to stop Kim if she falls. In all their years of climbing ice, neither has ever fallen. That doesn't mean they take anything for granted.
Ice climbing is intense in the way that when you put yourself out there on a lead, when you step up to a piece of ice that you've never climbed before and you really don't know what it's going to be like and what you're going to be confronted with, you have to trust your life in the hands of the person belaying you. So you create a pretty intense relationship with that person.
Looking good, Kim. Oh, kinda like that.
Kim has almost reached the halfway point of the climb. Once she gets there, she will anchor herself to the ice and put on a parka against the cold.
Climb, Kitty!
Then she will belay Kitty, so Kitty can climb past and lead the way to the top.
You know, it's good to swing leads and to in the way we support each other, and we're similar in a lot of ways. And my partner knows things about me that nobody else knows, and I'm glad they don't. Your life is in that person's hands. That person gets to know you like nobody else. They know you inside out.
Are you a chick with a pick? You kiss my ex, baby.
Kitty is on her way to the top. 150 more feet of mostly vertical ice.
I wouldn't say like that I seek risk. It's part of the experience. It's just there. If I go out and I've been climbing and I haven't experienced fear, then it wasn't really a good day of climbing. And I get addicted to needing this fear every day. When I'm experiencing fear, it's because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. I've pushed myself, but once I'm out of that comfort zone, then I think that I can learn more.
It takes Kitty less than an hour to reach the top, or as climbers say, to top out.
Climb!
Now, she belays Kim to finish the climb.
I don't think that people realize that there are these rewards from climbing. They're the lessons that I've learned that help me get through life. This isn't just an idle pursuit. This has real meaning that can be used for the rest of your life.
Okay, good job. Give him 5. Woohoo! Woohoo! Yay! Cool. That was fun.
Okay, run.
Climbing.
On belay, climb.
Norway, land of snow and ice, myth and story. Ul, the god of winter. Njord, the god of wind and storms. Skadi, goddess of the mountains and climbing. Frigg, the great protector of women. Odin, the greatest god of them all. For climbers like Kitty and Kim, Norway provides a vast array of challenges in a storybook setting far from home.
On belay, climb. Man, this is one of the coolest places in the whole wide world.
No crowds, no competition from other climbers, no hassle. The center of the ice climbing world here is Hemsedal, in the Norwegian Alps northwest of Oslo, where the waterfalls of summer become prime ice in winter.
It reminds me of ice climbing when I began ice climbing over 20 years ago in the States, that there's a real sense of adventure and wilderness here, that there's all this ice along the road and we haven't seen anyone on this ice. So there's a sense of exploration. You get up to an ice climb and you're the first ones to get on the ice. So you're not following someone else's pickholds or path. You get to climb pristine, fresh ice that no one's climbed. So there's a real sense of adventure in Norway, of going to places where not many people go. It's not a popular sport in Norway.
This has been a warmer than usual winter in Norway. Some of the major climbs are either not developed or unsafe. Still, as their last climb here, Kitty and Kim have their sights set on the Grotten Utfossen, above Hemsedal. It is one of Norway's classic ice climbs. Another attraction here for Kitty is Norse history and mythology, and how the stories hold meaning for climbers.
Like the story of Odin, who goes to the well of wisdom, but before he can drink, he has to make a sacrifice. So he has to pluck out his eyeball, one of his eyeballs. And for us in ice climbing, there are a lot of parallels, because there are sacrifices we have to make, difficulties and the conditions that we have to deal with in order to climb. And then there are lessons that we gain from the climb. Some of the lessons would be confidence, they would be dealing with fear, they would be the importance of keeping things in perspective, recognizing the strengths in other people and working together, pacing yourself, patience, determination, leadership, courage.
The early Norsemen, the Vikings, found inspiration in the stories of their gods' sacrifice and courage. They built the first sea-going ships 13 centuries ago and sailed as far as North America in quest of adventure, conquest, and riches.
They had a spirit of adventure that was quite unique in the world. I mean, there are different types of adventurers, you know, but they were great risk takers, physical risk takers, and great explorers.
Kitty has studied with Canadian storyteller Mark Jenkins about how the Vikings' pioneering spirit spread with their travels and stories.
Norse culture really does embody the stories that relate to bravery and courage and the search for wisdom through physical experience.
You're my hero. Oh, you're right.
And Kitty has that same bigger picture. It's what can I bring back? So it means that there's meaning in the experience. So what can I bring back from my encounter, my heroic encounter? What can I bring back to the community, to my son, to people around me?
Hey, off play, good job.
Yeah. Hey.
All righty, let's go do another one.
Okay.
The ancient Norwegians called it a gift from the master architect, the Grotten Utfossen, an 800-foot icefall above Hemsedal.
It could be fun, it could be hard. Could be good and hard.
It's committing.
Yeah.
It's committing.
Yeah.
They've waited for better weather for 2 days, but now Kitty and Kim have to go for
Oh,
it.
that's rotten.
The ice is deteriorating quickly. The critical point, or crux of the climb, is a narrow pillar 300 feet up, with a bulge at the bottom, especially dangerous with temperatures rising.
Fear will creep in, just looking at this thing. The column could break and you with it, and then you're dead.
Jay Smith, the man Kitty calls her sweetheart, and their friend Ken Sauls will take the pictures. Kitty leads the first pitch, or rope length, and sees warning signs right away.
This wind could get pretty big.
This is just the kind of challenge Kitty climbs for.
When I go out, I want to go on climbs that are going to be challenging to me, because I feel like I have more to learn from those than something that's easy, that's a given. But also I realize that if I succeeded on every climb that I tried, that I would quit climbing, because it would be boring, there would be nothing there for me.
With the wind increasing by the minute, Kitty finishes the first pitch and belays Kim.
Yeah.
It will be up to Kim to lead them over the bulge to the base of the ice pillar.
I think this is so hard today. You know, these conditions are brutal.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, I don't know that if I've ever climbed in wind this hard, you know?
I know. It's awful. I feel like I'm gonna get blown off the climb when I'm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
We're going for broke.
I trust Kitty's judgment, and I know that she's watching out for me and herself, and that's really important. If I don't feel good about something, we don't have to do it either. Sometimes I can tell if she's fearful, or she can tell if I'm afraid, and then there's an extra boost. I know that when I'm up on a lead, a hard lead, Kitty's not going to force me to do anything I don't want to do, but she'll really encourage me to work through the difficulties, and that encouragement really helps.
The rock walls astride the ice provide Kim with some shelter against the wind.
Funky in here.
Yep, you're doing good. That wasn't pretty.
I've never done that before. I had a feeling that was going to happen, though.
Kim will take a minute to regroup and try again. Kim is finally over the hump as the wind howls through the Himsedal Valley at 65 miles an hour. It's Kitty's turn now.
Right on. Good job.
2 pitches down, 3 to go. But first, other epics from the Calhoun file.
Well, I'm lured by the beauty of it, first of all.
Beauty in the mountain, beauty in the challenge, beauty in the skill required.
I see a route, and sometimes it wants to be climbed, and I have to climb it. This is Dhaulagiri. It's a 26,800-foot high peak in Nepal.
In 1987, Kitty set her sights on the world's 6th highest mountain. Avalanches were so bad in the Himalayas that year that 11 climbers were killed.
Definitely the most afraid I've ever been was being caught in avalanches.
And that's what happened.
And so I put my arms over my head, and I was rolling, starting to tumble pretty fast down this slope. And that's when I started thinking about okay, when you slow down, then you have to stick one arm up in the air, put one arm over your face. And I tried then to just think about these things and not panic. And it happened, the avalanche ended quickly, and we were okay.
They had been swept 500 feet down the mountain. Shaken, they retreated to reassess.
The problem with turning around is that then I'll question myself for a long time, maybe forever, if I could have kept going safely or not.
Kitty kept going, back up to 25,000 feet, and a week after the avalanche became the first American woman to summit Dhaulagiri.
Kitty is one of the most intensely driven women I've ever met. And I think you'd have to ask her what drives her, but I think what drives her are creating goals for herself in climbing and then taking the steps it takes to get to those goals.
This is Makalu, and this is one of my favorite climbs, one of my favorite pictures.
Makalu had never been climbed by a woman until Kitty in 1990.
And then Camp 3 is about in there at 24,200 feet. Camp 4 is about there at 25,500 feet. And then the summit is up there at 27,800 feet. Well, this is the summit of Makalu, and it was a special moment for me and for the whole team because we really weren't sure that anybody was going to be able to summit on the route because it was so much work. This is a peak in Aksu in Kyrgyzstan, and Jay Smith and I did a new route on this peak, and it goes roughly up like that. And I believe we rated this route 511 plus. 511 plus is hard.
just that ability to keep pushing in the face of failure is really what gets her to the top of these things. She doesn't like to fail.
Jay Smith has been climbing with Kitty since Kyrgyzstan.
So I think she's always trying to prove to herself that she can do better. And she does that not only in climbing, but in everything she does in her life.
This is another shot from another peak that Jay and I did in the Aksu Range, which was a very special trip for me and for a number of reasons. This climb we did with Dan Osman, who is a good friend of ours who has since been killed, and also I was 4 months pregnant on this trip. This is Teli Sagar, which is a 23,000-foot peak in India. And I went there first in 1986 with Andy Selters to climb a new route on the North Face that went like that. We didn't succeed. In 1996, Jay and I came back to try this route again. We didn't succeed.
This was another of the epics. Winds so fierce, their portaledge was almost blown away. Temperatures 40 below. And during the retreat, avalanche.
And the avalanche started about 50 feet above me, and this crown that broke was 10 feet thick, and the avalanche ran more than a quarter of a mile across the slope, and then the debris ran a whole mile down below us, and then it blew over us and we were okay.
There have been other major climbs since, this one in Alaska, and Kitty is determined there will be more.
Well, I'm not sure where my determination is coming from, but it could be just that I feel like every day could be my last day, and I want to really live life that way and not take things for granted and not sit and wait for opportunities to come to me. I don't want opportunities to pass me by. If there's something that I want, I make sure that I try to get it.
Wasn't pretty.
Kim has almost taken what climbers would call a serious ride. The ice is melting and fragile, and the wind is surging.
Have fun with this.
Kitty and Kim are not even halfway up the climb.
Well, maybe if we were on a day in Colorado, we would have said, forget this, we're going down. We can come back here.
But this is Norway, and their last chance at one of its classic climbs. Kitty is now approaching the pillar.
I can trust this ice.
She's learned from all her experience how to keep fear in check.
If I just focus on where I have to put my foot next and where I have to put my tool next and really think about what I have to, the very next move that I have to make to get up the mountain or get up to the climb, then I can put all that other stuff out of my mind. Sometimes climbing on these pillars, they can fall down if it's too warm. If you're on the pillar, it can be a really dangerous situation. We know a couple of people who've been killed ice climbing this winter from ice fall.
Looking good, Kitty. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
Kitty has passed the crux of the climb. Once Kim catches up, the two women will be fully exposed to the gale force winds.
We were on this climb and we were going for it. We weren't turning around. I mean, there wasn't any reason in our minds for us to turn around. It hadn't gotten that bad yet.
It is. I'm not sure I've ever climbed in this much wind. How about you?
Not ice climbing.
Not ice climbing. Kitty is super safe. I mean, she's really, really experienced. She's had years on a lot of different expeditions and climbing excursions, so I really trust her fully. She makes good decisions. I trust her gut feelings as well. You've learned how to deal with the wind. You've learned how to stack your ropes just right so they don't blow away. You've learned how to be warm and take care of yourself. And I think all that kind of comes together when the conditions get really bad like that.
"70-mile-per-hour gusts. The only question now is, can they keep from getting blown off the ice? The answer, maybe.
The wind is playing with me. But we're so close. I mean, that's the top, that tree up there.
Kitty is making the final push to the top. They've been going 6 hours.
feet, then I was kneeling, and then finally it's like I'm sitting down. Good job, Kim, man. Woo! Tell you what, that's a really good one. You okay? Yeah. Whoa. Oh, man.
Yep. Light as a feather.
No climb is finished until the climbers are safely down. Much like the early Vikings, Kitty and Kim will return from their experience with newfound wisdom and stories.
So the Norse would come back from their adventures and they would bring back the stories of what they'd seen and what they'd experienced. And the community was bigger and better because of what they brought back from the experience.
Kitty's friend, storyteller Mark Jenkins.
You have that deep knowledge from the experience and the encounter, the unexpected. You come down and then that's kind of a revelation. You get a revelation and you return with that to the community and people are better off for it.
For Kim, the revelation is to trust her instinct. She knew even before she slipped that one of her tools wasn't secure.
I had placed my left ice axe in some pretty thin ice. I had tested it. I had a gut feeling that it really wasn't really solid, but my right tool was solid, so I moved on it, and my left tool totally skated out of the ice, and my right tool caught me. My immediate reaction was I was grateful I didn't fall, that I caught myself with my other tool. So I couldn't let it faze me. So I had to just come back, reposition my feet, and move through it. So that was a new experience, and it taught me I have to really trust my gut feelings and know that those are what's true.
We have the experience that we were able to draw upon to be able to climb in those kind of conditions.
Kitty will take back parallels to Norse mythology, how all her and Kim's experience paid off on their own day of reckoning.
Because in Norse mythology, the bravest warriors were brought back from the dead to continue training so that they could help the gods on the day of reckoning. I mean, I feel like when we go out and climb daily or all the time, that adds up. For us, it was for the big day where we really wanted to be able to pull it off, because this was our last chance to climb this big, beautiful climb in Norway.
Kitty and Kim will return with their stories to a community that includes their students at Chicks with Picks, a program Kim has established to teach women how to ice climb and more.
Yay! Yay! She's a good teacher!
The theme of Chicks with Picks is women climbing with women for women. So it's not only gathering women together to teach them to be more self-sufficient, self-reliant ice climbers, but it's about giving back to other women that are less fortunate.
In 3 years, Chicks with Picks has raised $26,000 for local women's shelters.
When women get together and support each other and encourage each other and learn from each other, if she can do it, I can do it, that camaraderie is really powerful.
What better example than Kitty Calhoun and Kim Reynolds? Before leaving Norway, Kitty and Kim visit the capital, Oslo. They're here to meet a Norwegian storyteller. She's Heidi Dalsven, with a story from Norse mythology that so closely mirrors Kitty's career, it's remarkable.
In the beginning, the gods created the world. And when they had done that, they were very pleased with themselves. All men. And in the middle, Odin was sitting. He was the greatest of them all. But suddenly, they looked up. They saw a woman, a tall, strong woman with long hair falling down. And without hesitation, they grabbed their spears and they ran towards the woman and they stabbed her. 3 times they stabbed her. 3 times she fell dead. And 3 times she stood up. 3 times they burned her, but 3 times she stood up. And Odin, he had no choice. He let her stay. Her name was Freyja. She was the goddess of war. She was the goddess of love and fertility. And she taught Odin about how to overcome your pain, about courage and wisdom.
Okay, good job. Give him 5. Woohoo! Woohoo! Yay!
Like Freya, Kitty has earned her standing among elite climbers.
Yeah.
At home in Utah, she works hard to be ready for the next climb. But she's also looking back at her career for stories and wisdom for her son Grady and others.
But now as I think back over the experiences, the more I learn from them in retrospect, like, oh yeah, remember that what that meant to me and what it means to my life now, and that's what I'm trying to discover now. But I'm not really ready to become a monk in the rocks and just not have any more experiences and just examine. Right now I'm still in the gathering and examining stage.
I think that her main focus is her son.
Grab the cord. You got the cord?
No, I'm good.
You know, it takes up a lot of her time,
You ready?
and she doesn't mind, you know, taking time off from climbing and being a mother. And then when she can, she gets out and trip to Norway, and you know, she can take off for a couple of weeks, and she'll go back home and be a mom again.
I feel a responsibility as a mom to bring back lessons and then to share that wisdom with Grady. Some people are able to bring back wisdom just from their daily life, from being a house mom or from their job. But for me, I need to go out on these expeditions to get the wisdom that I can then give back to him.
So climbing isn't just her life anymore. Her son is also her life. And I think that has rounded her out and made her a more whole person. Part of her getting into a lot of the storytelling aspects of climbing is asking some harder questions of why do I do this? I think she's climbing some peaks inside, perhaps.
Looking back for Kitty evokes memories of friends. Friends killed climbing.
To start with Julie Culberson, and she was a wife of a good friend of mine. She was one of the closest. Another one of the most recent ones is Doug Hall, and we had climbed together with him, ice climbing quite a bit. See, initially I had thought that the reason people were killed is because they made mistakes. But then I realized, well, I've made a lot of mistakes too, and I haven't been killed. And then Doug Hall's mom said, well, they needed another angel. And that stuck with me. And that's what I believe.
Kitty is well aware. The more she climbs, the higher the risk of accident, or worse. She accepts that now, as she always has.
We were called to let go and climb, and I mean, one day I may be called to let go of my life, but at least I've considered it. I haven't run away from it.
It's because we can't stay home. We're too young.
That's right.
We aren't ready. We aren't old enough to retire yet. We have to keep
But I'd like
after
to
it.
retire so I can
One
play
day we
harder.
will. But as soon as we finish our stuff, we can't retire until we're finished.